I made some serious mistakes while living in Bangkok. Here's what you should avoid. When I first moved to Bangkok, I thought I had it all figured out, but I didn't. Watch out for these mistakes because they can completely change your experience. I'm breaking down the biggest pitfalls I made while living in Bangkok. Insights that have even been highlighted by Expatistan, Budget Your Trip, and Internations. Stay until the end because I'll reveal the one mistake that truly changed everything for me. I thought I was living the dream in Bangkok until it quietly started falling apart. When I first arrived, everything felt electric. The street food, the lights, the constant movement, it was like stepping into a never-ending adventure. Naturally, I treated it that way. Every day felt like a chance to indulge, explore, and squeeze the most out of the experience. I ate out for every single meal, telling myself it was part of living the culture. From street vendors to trendy cafes, I rarely said no. It felt exciting at first. New flavors, no dishes to wash, no planning required. But that daily habit started to catch up with me, not just financially, but physically too. I wasn't paying attention to balance, nutrition, or even how much I was spending. I was just chasing the next good meal. At the same time, I was exploring nonstop. Temples one day, markets the next, rooftop bars at night. I filled every gap in my schedule because I didn't want to miss out. But in trying to see everything, I gave myself no time to just exist. No pause, no reset, just constant motion. And the biggest issue? I had no routine, no structure to anchor my days. I woke up at random times, worked inconsistently, and made decisions based purely on what felt exciting in the moment. At first, that freedom felt incredible, but slowly it turned into chaos. Productivity dropped, my energy dipped, and I started feeling oddly burned out in a city that was supposed to feel energizing. That's when it hit me. What feels fun short term becomes unsustainable long term. Bangkok didn't change. My approach did. Treating it like a vacation instead of a place to actually live made everything harder than it needed to be. And that was the first big mistake. Just when I thought I was settling in, I made another mistake that hit even harder. After a few weeks of living in Bangkok, I started convincing myself that I deserved an upgrade. The city makes it incredibly tempting. Everything looks elevated, modern, and surprisingly affordable compared to what you might expect. So I moved into a luxury condo, infinity pool, high floor view, gym, 24/7 security, the whole package. At first, it felt like I had unlocked a new level of life, but that upgrade didn't stop at where I lived. I slowly adopted the rooftop lifestyle. Nights out became routine. Cocktails with skyline views, dinners in stylish spots, always chasing that Bangkok aesthetic. It felt rewarding, like I was finally living the life I imagined before moving. Then came the shift toward premium areas. I started spending more time in places where everything cost just a bit more. Cafes, malls, neighborhoods that catered to a more upscale crowd. And because everything was still cheaper than back home, I kept justifying it. One upgrade led to another, and before I knew it, my baseline had completely changed. That's the tricky part about Bangkok. Bangkok makes it easy to live better, but that comes at a cost. Individually, none of these choices felt extreme, but stacked together, they quietly stretched my budget and reshaped my habits. What started as a reward turned into a new standard I felt pressured to maintain. And once you get used to that level of comfort, it's surprisingly hard to dial it back. Looking back, I wasn't upgrading my life. I was accelerating it too fast without thinking long term. I skipped the phase where you find balance and went straight into trying to live at your peak. And that created a different kind of stress, one that didn't come from missing out, but from trying to keep up. Stick around to find out what can happen if you chose the wrong area to live in Bangkok. I didn't realize it at first, but the area I chose to live in was quietly draining my time, money, and energy every single day. When I moved to Bangkok, I did what most people do. I chose a popular expat zone. It felt like the safe option. Everything was familiar, English was widely spoken, and it seemed like the easiest place to settle in. But that convenience came with a hidden price tag. I was overpaying on rent, on food, even on basic services, simply because I was in an area designed for foreigners. At first, I justified it. I told myself it was worth it for the comfort. But over time, I started noticing how much more I was spending compared to what locals paid just a few neighborhoods away. The same meals, the same services, just inflated prices because of the location. What made it worse was that I didn't fully consider daily convenience beyond surface level comfort. Sure, there were cafes and malls nearby, but my actual routine suffered. Simple things like getting affordable groceries, finding quiet spaces, or even commuting efficiently became more complicated than they needed to be. I was surrounded by convenience, but not the kind that support a sustainable daily life. Some days felt unnecessarily exhausting. More traffic, more crowds, more noise. And because everything around me catered to a certain lifestyle, I found myself spending more just by stepping outside. That's when I learned something the hard way. Where you live determines how much you spend and how stressful your life is. It's not just about rent. It's about the ecosystem around you, your habits, your options, your daily decisions. They're all shaped by your environment. And if you choose the wrong area, you end up paying for it in ways that go far beyond money. In retrospect, I didn't need the trendiest neighborhood. I needed the right one. The real damage didn't come from big expenses. It came from the small ones I stopped paying attention to. At first, everything in Bangkok felt cheap. A coffee here, a snack there, a quick dessert after dinner. It all seemed harmless. These small purchases didn't feel like real spending, so I barely tracked them. I'd tap my phone, grab what I wanted, and move on. But those little moments added up fast. What felt like loose change throughout the day quietly became a significant chunk of my monthly budget. Then came the delivery apps. On busy days, or honestly just lazy ones, it felt easier to order in. Food, groceries, even random essentials. A few taps, and it would show up at my door. It was convenient, efficient, and dangerously easy to overuse. The extra fees, delivery charges, and impulse add-ons didn't seem like much individually. But stacked together, they created a pattern I didn't question. Transportation was another silent contributor. I told myself rides were affordable, so I chose convenience over planning. Quick trips turned into daily habits. Hopping between trains, booking rides instead of walking, choosing speed over savings. Again, nothing felt excessive in the moment. It all felt justified, but over time, the pattern became clear. This is where my budget started slipping. Without me noticing, I wasn't making reckless decisions. I wasn't splurging on luxury every day. I was just consistently spending without awareness. And that's what made it so hard to catch. There was no single moment where things went wrong, just a slow drift away from control. What made it worse was that I still felt like I was being reasonable. I compared my spending to bigger, more obvious expenses and convinced myself I was doing fine. But when I finally sat down and looked at everything together, the total told a different story. Bangkok didn't suddenly become expensive. I just stopped paying attention to how I was living in it. Keep watching to find out what trying to live a Western lifestyle in this Asian city can result to. I moved halfway across the world, only to accidentally recreate the same life I left behind. At first, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like balance. I told myself I was just holding on to a few familiar comforts while adjusting to a new city. That started with imported food. Instead of fully leaning into local markets and street eats, I found myself browsing international aisles, picking up brands I recognized, paying 2 or 3 times more without thinking twice. It felt normal until I realized how quickly those little comforts were stacking up. Then came my routine of hopping between cafes and co-working spaces. Bangkok has no shortage of beautiful spots to work from, and I took full advantage of that. Sleek interiors, strong Wi-Fi, great coffee, it all felt productive and inspiring. But day by day, those cafe tabs added up. What could have been an occasional treat quietly became part of my daily baseline. The deeper issue, though, was my comfort expectations. I wanted things to feel easy, familiar, and seamless, just like back home. Air-conditioned spaces all the time, quiet environments, predictable services. And while Bangkok absolutely offers that level of comfort, it often comes at a premium. I was choosing convenience and familiarity over adaptation, and that decision had a cost attached to it. That's when it really clicked. The closer I lived to my old life, the more expensive Bangkok became. I wasn't just spending more, I was missing out on what made the city work in my favor. The affordability, the local rhythm, the small adjustments that actually make long-term living sustainable. Instead of adapting, I was resisting in subtle ways. And the irony, I didn't move to Bangkok to live the same life. But without realizing it, that's exactly what I was doing, just with a higher price tag in a different setting. That was the hidden trap. Not the big, obvious splurges, but the quiet decision to stay comfortable instead of becoming flexible. Make sure to watch all the way through and find out what happens if you fail to establish a structure living in Bangkok. I thought freedom would unlock my best life in Bangkok, but it slowly did the opposite. When I first arrived, I stripped away any kind of routine. No alarm clocks, no fixed schedule, no real structure to guide my days. I'd wake up whenever I felt like it, decide what to do on the fly, and tell myself this was the whole point of being here. It felt liberating at first, like I had finally escaped the rigidity of a 9-to-5 life. But that lack of routine started to blur my days together. Without clear starting points or boundaries, time felt slippery. Mornings turned into afternoons before I realized it, and important tasks kept getting pushed later. I wasn't intentionally avoiding responsibility, I just didn't have a system to support it. At the same time, I had too much freedom, and that sounds like a good problem to have until you're the one trying to manage it. With endless options every day, I kept choosing what felt easy or enjoyable in the moment, exploring, eating out, scrolling, wandering. None of it felt wrong individually, but collectively, it pulled me away from anything consistent. Then came the productivity drop. Slowly, almost invisibly, I started getting less done. Work took longer, focus became harder. Even simple tasks felt heavier because I had no rhythm to fall back on. And the more unproductive I felt, the more I leaned into distractions to avoid that discomfort. It became a cycle. What caught me off guard was how this kind of freedom didn't feel freeing anymore. Some days I felt burned out without knowing why. Other days I felt bored, even in a city as alive as Bangkok. That's when it finally clicked. Freedom without structure leads to burnout or boredom. I needed something to anchor me, not a rigid schedule, but a framework. Set work hours, consistent habits, small routines that gave my day direction. Without that, everything started to drift. Reminiscing, structure wasn't the thing I escaped. It was the thing I actually needed to make this lifestyle work. You'll want to see what happens if you keep delaying the development of a Thai lifestyle living in the city. Trust me, I kept telling myself I had time to figure everything out until Bangkok quietly proved otherwise. When I first arrived, I didn't really have a clear plan. I told myself I'd settle in first and figure things out along the way. It sounded flexible, even smart at the time. I didn't map out how I wanted to live, how much I wanted to spend, or what kind of routine I needed. I just assumed I'd naturally adapt once I got comfortable. But without a direction, every decision became temporary. I wasn't building anything. I was just reacting. I'd choose where to live based on short-term convenience, decide what to eat based on mood, and plan my days only a few hours in advance. It felt spontaneous, but underneath that spontaneity was a lack of structure I kept ignoring. The biggest issue was that I had no budget system at all. I wasn't tracking anything consistently. Some days I spent very little. Other days I spent far more than I realized. I'd check my balance occasionally and think, it's fine, without understanding the trend behind it. There was no awareness of patterns, only snapshots of spending that didn't tell the full story. And because I didn't have a plan, I became extremely reactive. Every decision was based on what was happening in the moment. A good restaurant recommendation? I'd go immediately. A new condo or cafe? I'd check it out without thinking twice. A last-minute trip or night out? I rarely said no. I wasn't guiding my life. I was responding to it. At first, it felt exciting, but over time, that constant reactivity became exhausting. I was always deciding, always adjusting, always catching up, but never really ahead of anything. And that's when it hit me. By the time I realized it, I was already paying for it. Not just financially, but in momentum, in clarity, in control. The small lack of planning at the beginning had turned into a much bigger mess that I had to slowly untangle. In hindsight, figuring it out later wasn't flexibility, it was delay. And in a city that moves as fast as Bangkok, delay is expensive. You may not believe what I reveal as my one big mistake living in this Asian city. The real mistake I made in Bangkok wasn't any single decision. It was the way I approached the entire experience from day one. It's not any one thing I talked about earlier. It's because I didn't move with a system. I moved with assumptions. I assumed it would stay cheap. I saw the low prices and just believed they would remain easy and manageable, no matter how I lived. I didn't account for how quickly habits can shift when everything feels affordable in the moment. I assumed the lifestyle would work itself out. I thought that as long as I was in a new environment, things would naturally fall into place. My routine, my spending, my productivity. I didn't realize that environments don't organize your life for you. You have to actively design it. And I assumed I would adapt naturally. That being in Bangkok would somehow force me into balance without me having to think too much about it. But adaptation doesn't happen automatically. It happens through intention. That's the core issue. And it leads to a simple truth. Moving abroad without a system guarantees you learn everything the hard way. Because when there's no structure, no plan, and no awareness, you don't optimize your life, you react to it. And reacting always costs more in time, money, and energy than building with intention from the start. If I could do it all over again, I'd follow 3 simple rules that would have completely changed my experience. First, I would start simple, then upgrade slowly and control lifestyle inflation. Instead of jumping straight into luxury living or expensive habits, I would focus on building a baseline I could actually sustain long term. That means choosing a lifestyle that matches reality, not excitement, and only upgrading once I've proven I can handle it comfortably. Second, I would track my spending from day one, not in an obsessive or restrictive way, but consistently enough to understand where my money is actually going. Even basic awareness makes a huge difference because it stops small, unnoticed purchases from piling up into big financial pressure. Without that visibility, it's easy to assume everything is fine until it suddenly isn't. Third, I would design a routine early instead of improvising every day. Even a simple structure, set work hours, regular sleep, and repeatable habits create stability in a new environment. That structure acts like an anchor, especially in a city that constantly offers distractions and spontaneity. Structure equals sustainability. Without it, everything eventually drifts, no matter how good your intentions are at the beginning. And once things start drifting, it becomes much harder to regain control. These 3 rules might seem simple, but they are exactly what I wish I had understood before learning everything the hard way. The truth is, the people who succeed abroad don't guess. They build systems. They don't rely on motivation or luck. They rely on frameworks that keep their life stable no matter where they are. And Bangkok can absolutely be one of the best places to live in the world. It's vibrant, affordable, and full of opportunity. But only if you avoid these mistakes, and more importantly, if you don't move with assumptions the way I did. To better understand what expat life in Bangkok is really like, watch our other videos where we break down the reality of living there.